Okay, sorry.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna call the meeting to order. This is the Contract Review Committee, Friday, December 20th, 2004, and the time is 9:08. This is Veronica Bolchik, Chair. We are conducting this meeting in a hybrid fashion, so any vote will be taken by roll call. And we are here in the trailer in room B, and we do have some people up on the screen. So first, I'd like to establish quorum. So up on our screen, we have John Balash,
Here.
Linda Williams,
Here.
in person, Sue Minthinen,
Here.
and myself, Veronica Bolchik. So we have 4 members, which is the minimum quorum that we could have, so we've established quorum. Joanna Roach has sent her regrets. She is terribly ill and has absolutely no voice, is on her way to the doctor as we speak, and Bert is on the boat heading to America, so he has sent his regrets. If he can connect, he will, but we know what that's like. So
Veronica, how many people on this committee total?
7.
we have 7.
No, how many are supposed to be on the committee? I know we have some problems getting people.
Right, we have 7 on our roll.
There are
Is that
7
all we're
seats,
supposed to have,
7
or
seats.
9?
7.
7.
Okay. So
Yeah,
I'll make
we
sure.
are, yeah, we're 7, so a quorum would be 4.
All right.
And that's why attendance is extremely critical, and especially over the next month and a half. So let's try to make this as efficient as possible because everyone's time is very precious. So the next thing is to approve the agenda. Can I have a motion?
I make the motion.
Okay, John, would you
I'll second it. I'll
Okay,
second it.
Linda second. So John Balash,
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Sue?
Aye.
Myself, I, so the agenda is approved. So we have minutes from November 8th, which is the last time we met. Can I have approval by a motion of the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, John Balash,
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Sue?
Aye.
Myself, I, so we've approved the minutes, thank you. Any public comment? Oh, excuse me, I did not,
Remember the.
excuse me, what I did skip over is, we have the committee, established, but we do have 2 people from town staff, Jericho,
In attendance?
Alexandra.
Here.
And we do have 1 person from the public. We have Morgan from Fairwinds. Okay, so with that, any public comment? None?
No.
So, okay, thank you. With that, we will go on to item 6, which is review the process for grant that we agreed to on November 8th. So with that, we divided up the grants and gave assignments for people to go deep down in. With today to review at a high level these applications and come up if we have any questions for any of the grantees. We also, then our next meeting is on January 10th and January 11th, when we said we would be doing interviews. This morning, early when I spoke to Joanna, she will be here on the 10th, but on the 11th, her son is being deployed. And she doesn't know what time he reports to the ship, etc. So she does not want to miss that. So she'll be leaving the island in the afternoon. So I told her she would be fine for the morning interviews. What I want to throw out, I don't know if the grant applicants have been notified that it would be on the 11th.
We have not done that yet because I wasn't sure who we were gonna invite. I'm gonna, after this meeting, send out that as currently planned, the presentations will take place on the 10th and 11th. And we'll have a sign up form for you, but I wanted to have a better tone for who is gonna get invited.
Okay, what, I want to put up for discussion is if Joanna is not gonna be available on the 11th. We have meetings scheduled for the 10th and the 11th were interviews, the 17th and the 24th. And the 31st, we were doing deliberations. Would we want to not do interviews on that Saturday and do interviews on the 17th?
On
I'd
our
rather not
side,
do anything on a Saturday. Thank you.
staff wise, that's 6 one hand, half dozen on the other. I think we're okay with that. It might,
Calendar wise, though.
that's,
Right, because what happens is if we do the interviews those 2 days, we have deliberations on the 24th and the 31st, and we wanted to have the report ready that following week, which Jericho, from discussions that we've had, we think that we should be able to crack down and get that done.
and I think in general, so the time pressure on the final report is primarily to get it in front of FinCom quickly enough. So that they can do their recommendations and move forward on it ahead of town meeting. If we need to, we can roll back an additional week, so I'm pretty confident we can get that done ahead of, like, I think the proposed submission date when I talked to finance was mid-February.
So that's mid-February to get it to finance.
To get it to finance and then arrange when we'll go and talk about it with finance.
Okay. All right. Should we make a motion to change that date?
I would suggest it's best to do that with a motion and then a motion and then a vote. Just, I think scheduling changes is probably always a good idea to do votes.
Okay.
So if it's a public facing schedule type thing. So my suggestion would be a motion along the lines of like to remove the 11th from the scheduled meeting and move it to the next day already scheduled. So we would end up with 10th and 17th for
Interviews. Okay. Alrighty, can I have someone make that motion?
Do I have
Okay.
to repeat? Go ahead,
Mm-mm.
Lynn.
Make a motion to eliminate the 11th and go to the 17th and the 24th, I guess.
I'll second that.
John,
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Sue,
Aye.
Veronica, I. So our interviews will be on the 10th and on the 17th. Right. And no interviews on the 11th. We'll let Joanna know that because it was a concern and we want to try to get as many people as possible here, and Saturdays could be problematic. It could be good for maybe some of the applicants, but problematic for us, so.
There's a
Alrighty,
3-day weekend in there somewhere, and that may be the 17th, maybe.
it is. It is, so, but we're Friday morning, so people shouldn't be starting their 3-day weekend until noon. Let's hope for that.
And we'll post, so after this meeting, I'm gonna post. So I think after this meeting, we should have an idea of who we're going to bring in besides the ones that we had already decided.
Right.
So we had decided that anyone who was a new applicant, anyone over a certain dollar threshold was gonna do a presentation.
So new applicants, if we go down the list there, the new applicants would be the Athenaeum. Do we consider Boys and Girls Club?
No.
Because they have a youth behavioral health, so we wouldn't have them
But-
as new.
Over 150.
Right, right. I'm just doing
Oh,
new
yeah, sorry.
applicants first, so it would be the Athenaeum. Lighthouse School would be a new applicant. And Sharing Kindness is a new applicant. And
Warming
Warming
Place.
Place is a new applicant as the Warming Place, so.
So as a separate organization, they submitted under a different organization. So in my opinion, they would be a new applicant this year. Technically, last year they were a subcomponent of the IFC's
Right.
proposal. So in my opinion, they would count as a new
Okay.
org.
So, let's see, we got those down as the new applicants that would be invited. And then we said anyone over 100,000 should be invited also. So on that, we have Boys and Girls Club, Dreamland, Health Imperatives, In the Herd, NAMI. Fairwinds, now Judgment Call. Interfaith Council is $95,000. That's close enough that we should or should not.
My suspicion is that we should, close enough shouldn't, unless we see a lot of 999,000 or like $99,099 bids. I think I think we already are going to call them in for specific questions from follow-up from last year.
Right.
So I would say, yes, we should call them in, but not because of it's close enough, just
Okay.
because it's a follow-up question, much like I think we talked about Artists Association. We wanted to see if they did the presentation.
Right. And,
Madam Chair,
yes,
is it my understanding we're not going to interview everybody?
yes.
I'm
We're
not
gonna
comfortable
give
with that.
Everybody the opportunity. Where, what we had decided at our last meeting was that, dollar amount, we would have them come in and new people, but we do not want to exclude anyone, but we used, as an example, South Coast, legal. I don't think that it's necessary for them to come in for an interview. It's a pretty straightforward. Of course, if he would like to, he's certainly welcome to. Someone like, and of course, if we have questions about the application, no matter what, they would be invited to come in.
I have a
Does
problem with
make
that.
sense?
Well, Linda, we
I
did
have-
discuss this, Linda, we did
I know.
discuss this at length previously.
But I think everyone should be given obviously an opportunity. But I think
Yes.
even if it's for 5 minutes, I think we should hear from people.
When we allowed anyone who desires to do exactly that.
Right. But they would
I'm-
not be required.
Okay,
John, do you
Yeah,
have-
I can speak to two of those. I can speak to both Elder Services and South Coast Legal, which were my assignments, and I have spoken to each of those. I'm sorry, my age, I'm not picking the names up right away, but anyway, I spoke to each of the people and they are willing to come, but looking at their applications and looking at what we know about them, I said to them, they certainly didn't have to come if they didn't want to, and obviously coming over on a ferry for 5 minutes isn't worth it. And the best Christmas present I could give to whatever's her name at Elders, sorry,
Yeah.
Jerry. But he said the best Christmas present I gave to her was saying, "You don't have to come."
Yeah.
That's all I could. But anyway, they're perfectly willing to come if we want them to. But
And we will make sure that it's worded that, if you want to come in either via Zoom or in person, we will give you time, but it's not required and it will
No.
not affect the outcome of our deliberation, whether
Right.
they're here or not here. All right, so we just want to make sure when we send out the invitation, that's made clear.
Yeah, and
So-
then make, but yes, and make that clear so that in case, because as I said to each of them, I'm only a single member, and so I think in what whatever the notification is, that has to come from obviously the whole committee.
Right. And as an example, we may have a question and I will just jump out of order here with, our Meals on Wheels. One of the questions I have when I looked at that is their numbers are going up and their cost is going up, but they have not requested additional funding this year. And that's a question I would have for her, but if she wants to come in, or we can send her that question and get an answer ahead of time. And John, you may already have that,
I
information.
did not ask that specific question, but I have a feeling that the absolutely the best way to do that for her and for points of our use of time, if you sent that to her and directly, she would be able to come up with that, in a written form.
paragraph.
And I can actually shed a little bit of light on that specific question, which is that we managed to secure additional grant funding support to offset some of those costs,
Okay.
both last and this fiscal year.
Right, okay. All right, so that is basically what we discussed back on November 8th, and, I think what we should do next, just because of time here, and I've lost my agenda, there it is. Is if we can go into the individual grants and go through these.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I have a proposal for how we might want to approach that in the meeting. I would say we all look at the table of contents for each of the grant packets. We just work our way down. We basically share so what we do, so for example, a safe place, whoever has the safe place would do the good thing, bad thing about their proposal. We would discuss it briefly, 5 to 6 minutes, about whether we need additional questions.
right,
Lexi and I can get down whatever questions might need to go to the agency directly for questions, and then we make a decision if we have sufficient additional questions to ask them to come for a presentation.
all righty. So if we want to start with the safe place. And that would be Linda.
Don't start with me. I told him I was gonna have trouble with this because I didn't get out of the
Okay, we can
Concom
do-
until after 8 to last night. And the book that he gave me didn't have holes in it and everything came out of it.
We'll start at the bottom. We'll start
Okay.
with Fairwinds.
Okay,
Great.
so. here it is.
How
Okay,
does the other-
let me flip to find my fair winds.
I can say something.
Okay, here we are. I got it. You go first.
Oh, so I thought, I mean, this is the primary psychiatry provider for the island. I mean, I'm a mental health professional, so it's essential. I think it's really important to support that, and knowing how insurance reimbursement works, I think $75,000 well, that's not even the whole.
Right.
75 wouldn't go totally to that, but I felt like that was a reasonable amount to ask in support of an essential service.
Right, and that's for the reimbursement gap.
Yeah.
One of my strong points here is that increase access for psychiatric services to 700 clients, which I believe is more than what they've had. So there's an increasing need. And also, they spoke in the application about reaching more youth and families with backgrounds of diversity and doing more of an effort there. So, and you know, my next strong point was, the, financial stability, because there is what we would give them for that gap still doesn't cover what that gap is, and their goal is to reduce that deficit by 10%. I'd be curious to ask them how they plan on reducing that by 10%, but that is, I saw that as a strong point here, because any organization ultimately cannot be sustained if you've got a deficit. And it's a large deficit on a yearly basis.
Right.
So they were the strong points that I saw.
One of my other strong point was, that they've got this grant for providing professional development opportunities. But a lot of their, employees are fee for service, so to be able to offer them incentive to attend trainings is huge, because if those employees are in training, they're not making money.
Right,
People aren't being seen, insurance reimbursements aren't coming in, like the whole system kind of stops, but you want to make sure, but it needs to happen. People need to keep learning. So to at least incentivize the employees to do more trainings.
right,
And get paid for that,
yeah,
because that's a good professional standard to uphold, is to be able to pay your
Exactly.
employees to be trained.
and that would be part of, they asked for 125,000, 75 for the reimbursement gap, and 50,000 was for workforce development and audit. And that was another point that I made here, is the $25,000 to do a management overall audit is something that has come up in the past with CRC, and their application noted that they're requesting money so they can actually do that.
I felt like that was not my favorite part. And I'm thinking, like, who else does grants for infrastructure? That was my take on the audit. I know it's like, maybe it's hypocritical because this body has been pushing for that,
Right,
but I don't know if this body should pay for that.
right,
Well, and then I think that is something, so that they are past the threshold, this is something we can ask them
Right.
directly. I'm taking from this, the official questions that we have are about how will they close the gap for the area, and then have they explored other areas to fund the capacity or infrastructure development? I think those are two questions that we can ask ahead of time, and then we can also do the discussion directly while they're in.
mhm. But that pretty well is just high level, you know.
And I think,
so.
so I think, yeah, my idea for this is that that's what we do for each one of these things. If a question comes up, like John just raised his hand.
Right. Yes, John?
This just happens to be a coincidental observation. Yesterday, I was at a lunch where Roberto Santa Maria gave us a group of men an overview of Fairwinds, and having heard and been involved over the years with where Fairwinds was, I would have to say that my impression is that with him involved, the ability to organize things is enormously improved. And and just as a passing thought about as he left, he said, "I'm sorry, I have to leave to go meet our auditor." I pass this on, sort of anecdotal, but I think it's,
Apropos.
it's apropos of our general involvement with Fairwinds over the last 10 years.
And John, just to add to that, and this is just a sidebar comment. Their application, I thought, was very well put together, thought out, organized. So that helps also. And whether it's, as they said, coming down from the top, or just seeing evolution of an organization, let's put it that way. I think
Yeah.
it's evident in their application. Mhm. So we are going to invite them to come in. We have some questions, and of course, they will also do a high level over, and we'll have probably other questions that day as they speak, so.
So-
Moving on from,
Very quick process question. Was that like a good way to do that?
Yeah.
oh, I
Okay.
think
All
so,
right, then we're good.
okay,
So going from the bottom next to the warming place.
okay, warming place, so.
I'm gonna
warming-
literally move away from the table.
Okay, warming place, recognize this is the first time that, they have done an application for a grant, and it was, very clearly pointed out, written. The grant summary, as I can make it very high level, is, they would like to hire an operations manager. So the way that I look at this, they've had, a organization, a service that's been run, and most of it is done by volunteers. And there's a management and operations manager thing that makes it difficult. I can understand having volunteers doing that, having volunteers, organizing volunteers, taking care of supplies, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that is a big part of what they're asking for. And then the rest of it would be just overall program support. So the crux of this really is asking for money so they can hire a operations manager. Fiscally, I looked at this application that I guess when they started, and I may not have this 100% correct, and I know Sue has moved herself away from the table. They received a large donation to start or to get it off the ground, and they still have some money of that in the background, but they recognize that they have to find sources of money to keep this operation going, that a CRC grant will be available potentially for a period of time, but they recognize they need to build a donor base, work on other grants, et cetera, to keep this going, because they also are expanding their availability. So they're 7 nights a week, they're doing some daytime, and I also saw in here that they are providing social services, coordinating with some of the other organizations, so that's basically crux of it. You know, the strong points, they're the only organization serving this population. We know that, and then I just said they're expanding, they've expanded their services and having 7 nights a week and then 3 daytimes and all other ancillary services they're doing. And then the points of concern was the ongoing funding, the sustainability, but I know they're working on this. And, you know, I also saw the point of concern of them not having a operations manager. So, John?
Well, this is just another anecdotal note. It just so happened at that same meeting, there was Phil Reed from the Congregational Church.
Okay,
Volunteer said that the Congregational Church, and I don't know how many nights a week, has made available the downstairs of the old meeting house. And I know that layout from the days when I was singing in the choir there, and it is extremely adaptable for exactly this kind of purpose. Having it back in my past, volunteered in New York for an equivalent service offered by can't remember which the church was, but it was. I have to say that having that facility available to them is obviously going to make a huge difference in what they can offer in a safe environment. In fact, one of the observations was, because a question came up, and this is useful, I guess, generally, do they serve both men and women? And they said, in recent times, they've only had one woman for about 2 weeks. But one of the aspects of the Congregational Church space is that there's actually a separate room available for specifically for women to be separate from men, and they have the opportunity to get hot water
Mm,
for bathing purposes.
Good, good.
Anyway, I thought that it just happened to happen, and it just sort of, it's information that's useful. It doesn't have to do with what their application is about, but it's an indication of the reality of what they can offer.
Exactly, exactly. All
And then,
right,
I would be remiss if I did not repeat, some of the concerns that have popped up both on the finance side of this in the past about, grants supporting positions. I think that the only caveat about that we need to be concerned about is that we cannot guarantee funding in a future year. So if a position solely and that's sort of, you address that to
Yes.
begin with.
yes,
But that's sort of one of the things that I've been asked to mention by finance on these points.
right,
Personally, I think that it's only been about 2 years since I was 100% convinced that there would never be an overnight shelter on Nantucket, and it's 2 years that we have had an overnight shelter on Nantucket. So that counts for quite a bit in my book.
right, right. Yes, it's, I think we, and the application once again was very complete and, but, you know, we do want to hear more and when she comes in. Mhm.
Linda has her hand raised.
I'm sorry,
Linda has her hand
oh,
raised.
Linda, I'm sorry, Linda?
As far as paying for staff, the CPC went through pretty much the same discussion, yes, several years ago. And we acknowledge, particularly with the rental assistance that we fund, that paying for staff was essential. Or paying for training was essential, because without the staff or without the training, the project or the program would not continue. So the CPC is funding the almost the entire salary of the rental assistance person, because you couldn't do it without it. So I'm not adverse to paying for staff in certain situations, without which the program's not happening.
Absolutely. And I think that paying for staff can lead to better self-fundraising possibilities, which then means that they don't need to come to us for as much money. So it's just one of those things that I have been asked to to keep in mind when we're setting up grants.
Right,
But it is necessary. We have to do it to a certain extent.
right. Okay, moving on, the next one on the list is Star. That was Joanna. I'm just gonna look at some notes.
I'll reach out, we'll reach out to Joanna to see if she has any notes she wants to share, and then we can send them around after.
Okay.
For me, which Star application this was?
So, actually Joanna this morning, when I communicated with her that she was not well, she said she would try to put together some high things. So she has sent me a couple of notes here, which I will read about Star since this was hers. Year-long programming for 43 people for $331,000. Is this a first-time request? Well, actually, the way that I looked at what they're asking for in this application is their summer program. It's just funding their summer program, which there, once again, I don't know if they've run these programs in the summer or is this something new that they're doing? But, you know, she also said they have a good track record. They're very local grassroots organization. And, so those were just a note that she had sent to me on that. Let me see if I have any other online notes as I went through these.
So I can add a couple of things.
Right.
I know that specifically the Wheelers program, full disclosure, my mom is a volunteer for the
Right.
Wheelers program. So I have some idea of their schedule. They do operate in summer and not, but this is a higher tempo. And I think it's a longer program than they ran last year. Additionally, I know that program has been running. That's a assisted bike riding for people with mobility issues. I know that has been a extremely large benefit to a large number of people who have been through the Our Island Home and other people who have mobility issues.
Right.
So that's, and then I have worked with Star on 2 different other programs, and they've been extremely responsive, extremely nimble, very, very, very dedicated.
Right. Linda?
I was gonna
Linda,
back up.
see
I was
you.
gonna say almost exactly what Jericho just said. They have for many years run a summer program. So I've known
Right.
kids that have been involved with that. So they do the biggest bang for the buck, and the impact on the people is just insane.
And, you know, their application, they talk about, it is the rider program, but also beach programs and working with, the sailing, camps and trying to get their, clients out on the water, buddy programs, et cetera. So, it is for year-round residents, but in the summer, they also open it up to seasonal, but they have to commit to being there for the entire time. So it's not serving, say, someone who's just here for a weekend. So they are reaching a fair amount compared, knowing that the population is small to begin with, but it's a population certainly with a great need. So.
So we're now, there's now this is the first time in this particular list that this has come up. Star has not met any of our criteria to be called, to mandate a interview. So we would need to decide now, do we want to ask them to come in, or do we want to let them volunteer if they'd like to?
I would like to ask them to come in because we met, and as CRC, and I'll say just for myself, I know people on the committee have longstanding relationships, but I met them first when we did the youth behavioral health grant, and that was a very specific thing. We funded the ice time for that program. This is completely different, and I would personally like to have the opportunity to hear more, and so I would like to invite them.
And I don't think we would need a vote. I think we just need one person who wants them to come in, and I think
Okay.
we would need, like, I think that we should have the threshold for calling them be as low as possible.
Right.
So, okay.
All right, next on the list would be South Coast Legal, John.
Well, again, I looked, their application is extremely thorough. And they have not increased their request from in the past. Essentially, that request covers transportation expenses and some of the compensation for the lawyers they send over. Now, this organization has a large amount of funding from various other sources and actually covers not only the Cape, but the Southeast Massachusetts. So that essentially we get a tremendous bang for $5,000 because it essentially they're able to even provide us services because they have this large organization that is doing other things. So it's basically they're delegating a person to come over and service our community. They don't, they have about 15 cases a year, but it's a very specific kind of situation where the local legal community really isn't available for, or willing to undertake this kind of representation. So that, you know, I don't really think I have much more to say about it, but if you look at their application, it is about as thorough as you can get. And I think we just don't need to spend a lot more time on this one because we have other things that are considerably more, have more questions about.
I agree with you, John, on that. So we could probably move on to the next. I think we all have the similar feelings on South Coast. Next comes up the Memory Cafe with residents at Sherborne, and that's Linda.
I think they need to retool themselves. It's money that's not apparently working. Because they don't have a large group there. They're lucky to get more than a couple of people. I'm not sure that the way they have it set up, though I was on the Council on Aging and we sort of championed this. It's not reaching its goals. So I think we need to have them come in. Because I don't want to keep throwing money at something that really needs to be reorganized or rethought or reached out. Or I know Jericho told me he didn't think it was an issue of not getting the word out. I just know that back in the day, the adult daycare center had a lot of people in it. You know, we're going back 10 or 15 years for that. But this is, I think there may be they need to target the caregivers. So I love the concept. We promoted the concept, but I think there's some issues with with what's happening.
I feel like it's pretty global in terms of anything dealing with cognitive impairment. There's a few programs that are trying to put some stuff out there and they're all struggling to get participation. And it's not for lack of people with cognitive impairments and caregivers being in the community. So they've gotten together and they're like, what is going on? And they just haven't cracked the nut, but maybe, you know, we can help somehow.
And I know that we had spent time last year with Brian and with Jennifer, I was gonna say Jennifer, you know, thinking of different ways to promote different things, and I think they've tried, and I think it comes down to that this is a bigger issue. One of the points of concern that I had with this, I see that, well, they're asking for more money than that we've given them, and they also are branching out.
I got it.
Our island home. Yeah, at our island home, and, you know, I don't want this to come across as a negative, because honestly, any services that could be given to the residents at our island home is a wonderful thing. However, that's not what this was intended for. So it sounds like they're seeking out the cognitive impairments, you know, and where they are, but maybe that's not what this money should be used
Right.
for.
Thanks for warning me.
I agree with Sue entirely that it's not because there's not a substantial amount of people with dementia, Alzheimer's, et cetera, in this community, and people taking care of their loved ones at home as long as they can. I don't know how to get them in here. So it is something where we got to have a conversation, because it's not that the population isn't out there, but just why aren't they there? at the location over here by me at Sherburne Commons.
So it sounds like we want them to come in, even though, they don't meet the threshold, et cetera, but we've got enough concerns that we want to talk with them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next
So-
would be Sharing kindness.
Sharing kindness is next, and, I took that one, let me just see my notes on them. New organization to the island, which I put down as a positive.
They're new-ish
Yeah,
to the island.
full disclosure, we worked with them on several issues a couple of summers ago, and we had involved them in a behavioral health post and prevention program. I've actually worked with them on helping set up QPR trainings,
Mhm.
and they have also been doing a variety of groups.
Right.
So they're new to this grant application process.
Okay.
I've actually worked with their two primaries a fair amount. They're very dedicated.
Yes.
Um,
Yes, and I put it down, a strong point is that they, well established on the Cape. I know that they've done things on the island, but that it's a newish organization and their scope is, it's broader and more targeted than, say, a Fairwinds, even Pascon. So I look at this that, it's basically a grief recovery program, a grief, is recovery program the proper word? Support, thank you, not recovery, support, brain dead over here. A grief support program, I don't think it's just limited to individuals who have been affected by suicide in their circles, in their life. But I think that is that's how the organization started. I look at what the programs they're doing on the Cape, and I would love to see some of those things come over here. So I realize that there may be some duplication of services with the grief support, but they also talked about doing a stillborn program, and I'm sorry, I'm not finding the words at the moment here.
They were good, are they
Perinatal,
doing a perinatal? one?
they actually, they are, they're also doing support groups for, I think the definition of the people who they're serving there is anyone with like either it's perinatal or postnatal
Right.
grief and loss, which can be a variety of different things.
Mhm.
And they have been doing that with, I believe, with the Visiting Nurses Association, which means that they have a really good line on how to find people who apply,
Right.
and how to get them together in group.
Right,
Which is an important group to have.
exactly.
I have my
So-
hand up when you get to it. I have my hand up.
Okay, Linda?
I think what's interesting about some of these new groups is that we should be, in just general terms, we should be funding people that are starting new things and giving them a leg up and giving them the seed money to get going. And I know we've talked to many years, even at the CPC level, about groups that are relying on us every single year to keep going, as opposed to these newer groups that have these really innovative ideas like this one, to get them started and see if that will then give them the impetus to go forward and get other funding and more grants, because we have shown that we are supporting their efforts. So there's a lot of positives in funding a group like this, because they may be able to use us to generate more funding and more interest and more, out there in the public kind of thing. So I'm all over these newer groups, because I think they can become a real integrated part of the society, because we showed faith and support for them.
And, I think that they are also, they've got passion beyond anything and success off island and could bring more opportunities for reaching vulnerable populations on our island, so, and I also looked that they're not asking for a tremendous amount of money. Although we don't want to do duplication of services, I think that they've got a different piece of that pie.
Well, that's where I guess where I'm struggling is that we have a free clinician-led peer grief support group on island, so I like them, I like the work they do, I don't know why they're picking this as the next group to try to launch when it already exists.
Or are they reaching people in their grief support that may not go to Pascon?
Could be,
Right.
but
Right.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This group seems to be more grassroots, and a lot of people aren't going to go to these organized groups. And the people that aren't going to do that or seek help from Fair Winds or do any of these organized, quote unquote, organized things, this may be more organic for some people that may respond to this approach as opposed to the organized approach. A joiner. There are a lot of people who are not joiners, and that's what I'm saying.
I like the institutional hesitancy kind of thing.
right, well, so that's what I'm trying to understand, how is this different, is it because it's like a sit down and it's a dinner and it's somebody outside
Yeah,
the
I mean,
Nantucket
I have seen in other circumstances, different populations utilize services based on whether they're local or off island. It might be a question of that, like, people aren't comfortable sharing this stuff with people that they're gonna see on a regular basis. I don't know that justifies duplication. That would have to be a more specific discussion about why in particular this is the group that they're taking to launch, which is sort of what I'm getting out of this. So they're a new applicant, they would be coming
just
in
bring them
anyway,
in.
and then asking them specific, like, so why this particular group at this time?
Okay. So that's sharing kindness. Next, we have Interfaith Council, and it was Joanna and Birch. Let me see if I have any notes from Joanna.
I do have one from Interfaith. I have two questions, which are different degrees of the same question from Bert. He was curious to see the breakdown of salaried employees there and then comparing that to the executive director salary. Just on that particular thing. That is his comments and questions on that.
How many executive directors do they have?
Yeah,
Well, yeah. Joanna doesn't really have any, didn't send any detailed notes on this, so.
they are above the threshold.
Yeah.
We did have questions from last year about
Right.
the management audit and the
Audit.
financials. It definitely
I would
seems,
say yes.
and then may I take from this discussion, the questions we would like them to answer around the progress of the audit? And then also, were there any other outstanding questions we should prepare for them ahead of time?
I am recusing myself on that.
Understood.
So it would be just if there's any other questions from John or Linda or Sue at this point. And maybe what we'll do is Joanna, after the weekend, if she's feeling better, we'll ask her for some specifics for this. Next is NAMI, which is Sue and Joanna. And this is the independent therapy
Yeah,
compensation.
so this is their program that helps kind of build in a sliding scale for people seeking therapy at private clinicians across the island. And I think it's strong point, I mean, it's been ongoing for a few years now. It increases options for people. Because a lot of the private clinicians don't take insurance. A lot of people don't have insurance, and then that would leave their only option to be Fairwinds, and while, of course, we think Fairwinds is great, they're just, people deserve to have choices. So I think that's really important, and it just increases the capacity across the island for residents. I like that their emphasis is on youth, families, and adults with children. So it sounds to me, and maybe it's a question, like, if there was a competition for funds, they would give them to youth and families before they would give them to an adult without kids. Just as that's their choice to fund that population, which I think is fine. It's just interesting to note. And the point of concern is that they pointed it out, is that they are limited in their funding for this kind of program now that they have lost income from the Dragonfly fundraiser that used to be shared with them. So I'm wondering how long this program has legs for.
Right.
Why did
Apparently
they
this
lose the funding?
donor choice.
Huh.
The Dragonfly is an event thrown by, it's a private group that throws it
Right.
and raises the money, so they have chosen to give their money elsewhere.
Well, I'd be interested to know why they didn't think this merited continued funding. What are we missing?
could-
What are we not saying?
We can reach out to, I mean, we could contact Dragonfly if you think that's appropriate, but I don't necessarily think that we should be asking. That seems to be.
That's not an us question,
Yeah,
that's a
that's
Nami
not-
question.
Yeah, like, that's not something that we really should be, I don't think we should be directly contacting Dragonfly about this. Not suspicion, my belief on this is that NAMI is this particular program is very difficult to get grant funding for in other sources. The questions we had in the past were around its eligibility and whether or not there were people who could have gotten coverage elsewhere through insurance in it. And we may want to ask that a little bit tighter, but to my understanding, it is that this is for people who do not qualify for reimbursement in another way. And that this is very much one of those things where, in terms of our dollars directly impacting individuals' lives, this is one of the biggest impacts to one of the larger numbers of people. It is the kind of thing that is going to be difficult to sustain over the long run. So
Right.
that should enter into the equation. But this really is a program that takes that supports professions that are necessary on Nantucket because of, as identified in the behavioral health gap study, the reimbursement rates on Nantucket do not match the increased cost of living. And then there's a whole rack of other issues that starts to cause. So it's my belief this is maybe not the most efficient method that we put money in. That's probably something like vaccinations in the long run. But in terms of funding that we directly impacting the quality of life of people and availability of services, this is one of the more impactful ones.
Right.
One of my, I guess it's a question to ask is, like, how do people access this? Like, if I was someone who was underinsured and wanting therapy and had a traumatic experience at Fairwinds or something, like, how would I know that I could find a private clinician and get to that resource?
Yeah, good question.
And do they have a wait list and whatever? So I did put out a question to Jackie, and it was late, so it's not her fault. She hasn't gotten back to me yet, but
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the question I want to ask them is, do people know how to access this other than already being in treatment and being presented to them by the clinician, which is not a bad way for them to hear about it, but
Right.
how does somebody who's not in the system already get involved?
Right, because they talk about, I guess they service 60 clients a month, and that number seems, or at least what she's written is a steady, and maybe that's the capacity that they have.
We
As
could
opposed
see
to the
if-
need.
If there's turnover in that number of clients, that sort of thing.
Right. And, looking at this application, it was, just asking for the reimbursement program, where in the past, they've given us applications that had that as portion of it and asked for other things.
Education
Where
stuff.
Education, that's where here, it's just for the reimbursement and, so, I think, we do want to have her come in because of the dollar amount, but also questions that we have.
Yeah. I agree.
Okay, so moving on from that, it's Martha's Vineyard Community Services next, and I believe that's me. Here, honestly, I look at. This is a critical service that they do, again, and $20,000, just shy of $20,000 in chicken feed, but. It's not a for what they do, it's probably a good bang for the bucks for sure. Because they provide services for individuals with disabilities and their families, and they also manage the, I have to go back and look, but the community resources or whatever, which is an important thing. Again, brain dead here.
Friday morning.
Friday morning,
Christmas.
up too late, up too early, Anyway, it's a valuable program and, John?
This is a thought that I'd never thought of before. Aside from the value of the services, I am certain the fact that they are providing services from our point, I'm sure that the value of the services far exceed what they're asking for from us. But the fact that our money supports it gives them leverage when they go for looking for funding other places to say, we're not only doing it on Martha's Vineyard, we're doing it on Nantucket also. And the other people will say, yes, that is a reason for us to give you more money to support things that Nantucket isn't supporting, but it helps your whole program.
Exactly. And, there's some difficulty they have just because we don't have folks on the island. They come over the winter time. It makes it more difficult. So some things are done by Zoom, etc. But flexible funding is the thing that I was saying before I couldn't find the administration of flexible funding. But, yes, I think it is, Nantucket gives them more clout. We are about 1/10 of what they do on Martha's Vineyard, but it's services we do not have here, and they have integrated well in collaboration with all organizations. So I think I don't think we need to invite them in. We will offer it, but I think we have enough information. Their application is always complete and
Additionally, they're some of the most responsive agencies that I work with. Reporting's always quick. Applications are always well formed. They're very professional. They're very responsive.
so we move on next. We're, I believe, in the herd. Oh, no.
Or the Lighthouse School.
Lighthouse School. I'm sorry, I'm looking at two different lists here. Lighthouse School.
That's Joanna.
And that was Joanna. Let me see if I have any notes from Joanna, but,
Just the teacher ed.
I have, she, basically had some questions of, how is what they're doing different than what the Dreamland is asking to do? I read their application. I've attended some of the lecture series that they've done, in the past. They bring over fabulous, speakers. The island is invited. Last year there was, Dr. Hollowell, who is one of ADHD out of Boston. He's written 23 or 24 books at this point. It was held at the high school. The audience was full, parents, educators, etc. I see it that it's a wonderful service, and I also realize they do this as a way of their professional development also, by having people come here. They don't have to send their staff elsewhere to get ongoing educational credits, etc. I looked at this similar to what the Athenaeum is interested in doing. I see this as wonderful support, learning. But I look and it, then I have the problem that it's a private school and they are charging tuition and, so I'm sort of like on the fence with this one, because I do think that they do great things, but should we be funding this? And so I'm sorry if I'd be fumbling over words here, but
This is the fumbling, like, this is the part where we're fumbling, like, this is where we're figuring out what our questions are, what our concerns are.
yeah,
I've done, at least one set of, we did a teacher wellness program in the fall that we ran, through with Lighthouse School.
mhm,
That's a substantially different thing than this program that was universally applicable, and I think had pretty solid attendance from people outside the Lighthouse School. That was a sector specific thing. I don't, I'll be honest, I don't have a strong opinion on the questions you raised. It has come up in the past in terms of, this programming should be as broadly applicable as possible, broadly accessible as possible. If it's stuff like, if it's publicly funded. I am curious, what the board thinks, and I do think that we should have them in to kind of, I mean, we were gonna have them in anyway, but I think
right,
that when we have them in, we should be asking like, how broadly applicable is this? How many people will be, how many not employees of Lighthouse will be utilizing this service? And that's just something that we should be considering when we look into it.
when you look at the application, I thought their numbers were very low. Linda?
I was gonna raise the same issues. I want to have them come in, but I have the concerns, if we fund them versus something else that we know the bang for the buck and we understand how they function and they have a bigger reach, et cetera, have more access to the public outside of their venue. I
Yeah.
think we might get into trouble if we fund something like this, but I think we need to give them a chance to have a conversation.
Yeah, because I agree with you, Linda. I think they do good things, they bring in great folks or whatever, but is this something that
It's too narrow.
it may be too narrow, it may not be necessarily in one of our areas that we should be funding, but I think we need to hear more from them. So they will be coming in. All right.
Shall I take from this, these specific questions are around the broadness of like access to this, to whatever, to the, what we're paying for?
Right,
I do want anyone we call in, I would love to have like something that they can bring, that they can prepare for when they're coming. That's the other reason I keep asking this.
all right, so that's Lighthouse School. Next is In the Herd, and that's Sue.
Third.
Bring on the horses.
Bring on the horses. So this is my grant summary. kids and adults experience a full day that includes travel and experiential learning in teamwork, social emotional growth and awareness with the aid of working with horses and other animals, I think, too. I love this program. I like that we found it, or they found us through the youth behavioral health grant. It's really unique for the people of Nantucket. It sounds like they're opening it to kids and adults. It's the progress, they have a pre and post, so the measurement is really easy to see. My concerns, is that, you know, it's partially over the winter and it's relying on boat travel. That's not its fault. That's just island. And, I wish they had put some more, of their data, their results in their application,
I know
but
that she has that.
because we know that she has it, so that's really what
I've got a chunk of the raw data
Okay.
to go through.
like, when she comes in, that's what I want her to show us.
Okay, so I'm gonna, so she, heard. It will be coming in. And then, question is, data. And I'll go through if the stuff that she had like a final packet, and I'll make sure that's shared out. And then I have the raw data, because I was just gonna see what I could play around with and find out you're doing it.
Make something pretty with it.
Yeah, more or less.
But I know it was kind of a slow takeoff last year, but then I think it picked up, and so I'm.
Full disclosure here, I have not had any other organization that has had as many unprompted emails or conversations for support as this since I started here. I had people that I had 2 or 3 unsolicited emails from family members. And then I had like a 15 or 20-minute long conversation with a parent about it when I just randomly ran into him, and they were like, "Oh, hey, before you go, can I talk to you about this?" It's worked pretty well logistically. Like, they missed almost no trips due to weather, and they managed to keep it going over the summer, which I thought was going to completely break. So it's very well run.
In her schedule, she has an additional day each month, just in case of weather
Right.
or boat issues,
And then-
boat issues.
Actually, additionally, I connected her with some horse owners on Nantucket, who have been in talks to kind of expand, if possible, the services to Nantucket, either as a backup or a supplementary. I do think that there is a solid chance that the off-island nature of this actually
Is a draw,
is a significant benefit. I can't remember if Linda mentioned that before. Somebody has brought it up, but them getting back and forth to the island, I think, is part of the draw. It adds like an element to it that is really beneficial.
Although we understand it could be anxiety producing and a deterrent for some. For a lot of the youth, it's an opportunity to go and ride on a bus, ride on the ferry, have
Get a
pizza,
hamburger, or
a
whatever.
hamburger, whatever it is that, you know,
Field
whatever,
trip, you know.
which is,
Yeah,
it is, the benefit of that is.
Visiting a foreign country.
Right.
and when she was running it like over school break and stuff, it just was it was respite.
People,
Yeah.
like, people were genuine, like, it was surprising to me, both the number and variety of those supports.
Right. Linda?
When you have a child with anxiety, diagnosed anxiety, I can't get my son on that boat and he's 28.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if it's a new experience. No, it doesn't matter. And he checks the buoy heights and the wind. And at times I had to say, I'm getting on the boat whether you come with me or not. And he had to get on the boat, and then he just died all the way across. So
Yeah.
the fact that they have a hamburger at McDonald's, or the fact that they have a bus ride or any of this other stuff with a kid like this, it doesn't matter. He's not getting on that boat. So there
Oh,
are
for sure.
kids out there like that this may be a great experience, but they're not getting on that boat. And if the wind is
And
too
that's
high, they're not coming back on the boat.
And that's why if there could be something developed on the island, we probably would have more participation for individuals like you're describing. So it's not.
That was
for
my
a-
point last year. I said that whole thing last year when this happened. I have had 2 horses. I was a professional rider, but it's a great program. I love horse therapy, et cetera, et cetera. But I brought up multiple times with her, you gotta start establishing something on Nantucket. And we sort of gave her some contacts here.
And we
But
followed,
it's
and
just, you gotta do it.
she's been following up with them. There are the people who are willing to do it. Are people who do not have the ability to purchase large amounts of liability insurance and maintain that. So we've been trying to manage ways, of getting of addressing the issue of insurance, the addition of location. And they've been talking to the Conservation Foundation. There's stuff going on here. But
Takes time.
well, it's not just that it takes time, it's literally more difficult to do this kind of stuff on Nantucket.
Right.
It takes more time, money and effort. And Linda, you are dead right. Like there will be more people attending if it's local. Or if it's a combination of local and a combination of local and international, let's say.
Okay.
And then, but as it is configured now, it is surprisingly effective to me, surprisingly efficient.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to increase the capacity by having it local, but since we don't have a local option.
I mean, my largest
I like
concern
this
is just the percentage of our total budget that the request
Right.
is, and that's really all it is, but I
Exactly.
don't think that we get into sorry, I brought it up,
Yeah,
like,
that's not today.
yeah.
Right, right. Okay, I think we need to move on
Correct.
because we still have a significant amount to do. So, they're coming in. We've got some questions. Okay, health imperatives.
Health imperatives, me
So-
again. So this is just for it's kind of their ongoing operations request. They offer really the only care for LGBTQIA services, sexual reproductive health, but for the uninsured, they're the only people doing it. They have WIC. I mean, it's critical. I see no real big points of concern. I mean, that I'm aware of, they don't do any fundraising on island, but in a way that's almost good because they do well with contracts and state contracts and fundraising off island, so it's leaving fundraising on island for our smaller agencies because they're a big agency. I have no real concerns.
Okay. All right, and because of the dollar amount, they would be coming in.
They would be coming in.
And I think
And the cultural competency they deliver in
Right.
is.
we
noteworthy.
don't have any, I had no specific questions of it. I would just like that when they come in, we'll just check to see how things are going and what they've got planned. That's really like, they're very good too.
Okay. All righty, with no more questions on that, we go to elder services. And that's John.
Well, I think we've sort of
Covered
covered
already.
most of elder services and that one question about the increased cost of the meals, and they haven't asked to cover it. I do know that they had a little left over from the prior year or from prior money available, which it wasn't a lot of money. I can't remember. It was about $4,000 or $5,000 that what they didn't spend. I don't think it was from our grant, but I think it was the. But in any event, I think so. Again, Sherry, she would come in if we wanted her to, but I know she'd be happy not to.
We'll offer it to her, but I think, if we have just a question, she'd be able to answer it easily without coming in. The next I'm going to Dreamland, and Joanna and I did Dreamland. I think, one thing that they are well aware, they asked for a huge amount of money. And, they know that they're not going to get, that's almost half of what we have to dole out. So they know that, they've been told that. And Strongest Plant's a good venue for education, and good ideas, you know, bringing in people. But it's a fabulous program. I think this is another one of those things where I hear mission creep a little bit, because they do great things with the island youth. Anyone who, they, of course, kids that are interested in theater program, they do fabulous things. I think with the youth behavioral health, they tried getting other students involved, and that's what they're looking at doing here again. I think it's gonna come down to, they need to come in and they need to pare down a little bit of what they're asking, and, you know, in the question that we ask if we can't fully fund what we do, and of course, they said they would have to pare it back. So I think that's what we're gonna wanna hear a little bit more of, what would they be able to pare it back to? Yeah.
When we communicate out to them about the questions, I'll say the primary concern is about the cost. What does the like kind of progression down, what are the core things about this?
Right, because the application, they did not, you know, and of course, they should be asking for what they want, but they did not break down of, you know, if we can't do that, we'll be able, you know, for 25 cents, you'll get, you know, an
Yeah.
ice cream cone,
Yeah.
for 50 cents, you'll get sprinkles on it, you know. We didn't get that kind of a breakdown. So that's Dreamland, so they'll be coming in. Can we move on to Boys and Girls Club? And that was Bert and Linda.
I didn't have a chance to get in there to talk to Jamie. I just know that it's quite a departure from the age groups, because back when my daughter went, she was in the first group of girls that were allowed to come in during the week. Because at that time, years ago, only girls were allowed on Friday nights. And then they changed it to the Boys and Girls Club after Title IX. Erin was the first girl to play football when she was told to be a cheerleader, and I said, wrong parent, my father was a football coach. So it's a big departure, because this is a very young group, but it's a group that is totally underserved, because you've got to sign your kid up for small friends before the kid's born. Same thing with Wee Whalers. It's a Rising Tide. So this is a really interesting thing for the Boys and Girls Club to undertake, but it is an absolutely essential service on Nantucket, because there isn't enough places for these kids to go, because not everybody can get into the preschool programs that they have elsewhere. So I was sort of interested in this, so I haven't gotten a chance to talk to Jamie, and I probably won't until after the new year.
Now, the way that I look at it, of course, you know, to develop more preschool opportunities, there's no doubt that there's a need there. From what I understand from the application, they brought in 20 students just starting, I think, in November or December. So they
Yeah.
supposedly have 20 preschoolers. What this grant is asking for, the way that I look at it, and they did not give us a breakdown of, here once again, to adjust the facility. So they would have more space to have more preschool students in. They talked about having 2 locker rooms that they would convert or whatever, so that's what I think the majority of this money is looking for. And then that's where I start having questions of, you know, renovations, et cetera.
So I agree. I think that is an interesting theory, like interesting question about in principle, like in my head, I understand why paying for improvements isn't bad, but also in my head, I know that if we purchase something fungible that will deliver value over long periods of time, that that is not a bad thing for how this money is spent.
Right.
The issue on this one is that it's not even an issue. The benefit on this one is this is 20 kids already going.
Right.
Expanding it would address a pure need. It is specifically addressing ELL, like English language learner
Right.
concerns and proficiency issues that have cropped up in the school. It's with a trusted partner that has been doing this for a very, very long time.
Right.
This is like one of the major concerns that was identified across a bunch of different behavioral health and other issue in the GAP study was this kind of thing, this
Right.
very specific issue. And, you know, outside of the proposal itself, working with them has been pretty effective and effortless on like a variety of different programs.
Right.
The town already has a ton of, we do like a STEAM program there, that's for slightly older age categories. And every kid we can get into that pipeline of the Boys and Girls Club, that is beneficial, just
Right.
flat out beneficial.
Right. But, you know, I think we need more details
Absolutely.
on, because I read the application twice trying to find how this money was gonna be spent, and it's more just saying $150,000 for change in the facility. So
Yeah,
that's.
there is a lack of specificity, which is why it's sort of critical that Jamie and the guys come in.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think, you know, they were auto triggered. Now we can give some specific auto triggered. They were going to be coming in anyway, but we could. The questions I'll ask will be about like sort of a more specific breakdown on what this money's actually going to be doing and how much physical change to the construction there is,
Okay.
which was also Bert's question.
Yeah.
John.
John,
I was just thinking a general observation in this case. It seems to me that whatever we do, we should at least consider the fact that if we,
oh, you've cut out,
Oh, we lost audio, John.
we lost audio.
Not muted though. That's weird.
We can't hear you.
I'm not sure you can hear us either.
I think he might have
no,
switched his audio. Oh,
Okay, sorry.
okay. No, I think it was off and I had to flick it back and forth on. Just the observation is clearly it's serving a need. So at the very least, we should be along with Linda's prior suggestion, this is a kind of a program that we need to show that the town is in back of it. And even if we
Right.
give them as much as they need, they can also leverage that. This organization has access to some of the major financial support on this island.
Right. If we give them some seed money, they may be able to
match or exceed
match
that.
or et cetera. So, yeah, but we need to have them come in and give us more information for sure. Okay, we can go on next to, excuse me, the Athenaeum.
Yes, the Athenaeum. So they are proposing what I would call a modest ask for a film series focused on social issues affecting the island. The total cost is $7,000 for 10 films to be shown. I thought that the strongest points were that it was really inclusive, it's planning foreign languages or films with subtitles. Collaborations with agencies it happened with each film. I happened to see one that they did, I don't know, just on their own as a kind of maybe as a pilot. It was about a woman in her like internship year, very relatable, as a chaplain. And so she was a chaplain in a hospital during COVID. And it was a very slow moving documentary. I mean, it was not an exciting film, but it was done in partnership with Social Services Department of the hospital. And Sarah Wright was there, did some Q&A after. It was really enlightening. Even my husband, who was bored or wasn't excited at the idea of the film. You were there.
Yes, we are there, too, yeah.
Wasn't excited, but he got really into it and thought it was fascinating, and it generated good discussion. And so while that was of particular interest to me, like they're planning on doing, they didn't list like the different agencies, but I definitely think I could see them doing one on immigration.
Yes.
And it's all documentary style, real life, real people, and having a Q&A be part of it. So I thought this was really interesting.
I think a part of what I liked about this, number one, it's getting the Athenaeum sort of established as another facility and a safe place to hold discussions like this. Their outreach coordinator, I think that's what, she's a
Lisa?
licensed clinical social
I
worker.
was gonna bring that up.
Yeah.
She just passed her quals. She's been fantastic. She's, in terms of collaboration, in terms of broadening the scope. The
Yeah.
people who-
They're using this to amplify
Yes.
her, but
There's-
all the issues that need
Right.
amplification.
And what was interesting, I attended, I think it was called A Small Voice or
Yeah.
something like that.
Quiet voice.
Small Quiet Voice. What was interesting is it was about a chaplain residency program. And there were people in the audience that I had never seen before, which I always find that interesting, and there was a gentleman that stood up that had such good things to say, and everyone was like, ooh, who is this? You know, but we had a half-hour discussion afterwards about this movie. So it's not just, here's a great documentary,
not
go
film
home and
day.
think about it. It gave us the opportunity to talk about it, and here we are talking about it still. So I look at this, it's, the Athenaeum's been around longer than any of us, for sure. But it's bringing them into a different, area of, that they haven't been doing.
But at the same time, they do.
Right.
They have, I mean.
Right.
You know what I mean?
They
Like
have
they're
their
teaching
films,
English classes,
right.
they're doing all kinds of community stuff all the
them
time.
acknowledging the role that public libraries have become in modern society, and they already have access and trust. They already are providing services. This is them acknowledging that they're doing that, expanding their mission. This is the good kind of mission.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So.
Do we have any specific questions about this program? I mean, in my head, the main reason we're asking her and the Athenaeum is like, it's the first time.
Right.
We want like a hey, vibe check, if you will.
Yeah.
And then like what kind of a what you got planned sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah,
There doesn't seem to be any specific questions about here. Maybe like, hey,
Right.
what movies you got? What are you thinking of? But that's.
can you make
basically
some
it.
suggestions?
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting, I tried to group our applicants into certain, and I grouped them with the Lighthouse School because it's sort of like the mission is somewhat the same of making people think
Mhm.
and educating us and whatever, but this is a little bit different because it is our public facility and they're doing the stuff that libraries should be doing these days, so.
All right. that
Anything
brings
more
us-
on that? Otherwise, we go on to the Artist Association. And John and Linda.
I'll defer to John on this. I just know that they had to change the name of the thing and they had to sort of broaden it out. But I've been a supporter of this. Dorothy and I were the first ones to visit them when they first started this program. I love this program. Go ahead, John.
Well, I'd have to say, unfortunately, because of, haven't been able to get over there. But just looking at their application, and having taken a number of artist classes myself, I think what they've done is to change it from a clinical approach to, if you will, a wellness approach. And I have to say, from my own experience, just I can absolutely understand how some of the people that, like, totally relate to the 2 letters that they submitted of people who were felt supported by it, that making it available on a broader basis and making it available through all of their classes probably reaches more people that will benefit from it than the original focus on having it sort of a specific art as a means of, as part of a specific therapy rehabilitation. I think, and it will give them again, a better chance to coordinate with a broader number of different people, but I think they should come in and explain it a little better to us, because having changed their focus, I think we all need to hear them articulate that to us.
I agree with what John said. I'd rather see the program broadened, actually, because it's so productive, but trying to train somebody with art therapy, specifically art therapy, is not easy. It's a lengthy process. You have to be certified, et cetera, et cetera. So they really have to sort of change the model and maybe reach more people, because it's not specifically, I'm going to be trained in art therapy. So they do. I just think it's a great program. I love it.
And to be clear, there was 0 chance of them having a clinician to meet the criteria of the program that was originally launched. That person, I believe there are 2 people with that certification on Nantucket, and there's no way that the Artists Association could afford that in any way, shape, or manner. And
So
those people.
so they've changed the focus to make it more, but is, they've asked for more money. So they want to expand because they obviously have a waiting list, or could have a waiting list. So it's gonna be, ultimately, how much can we fund?
They did source and receive a variety of behavioral health trainings. They got QPR, and then they got a specialty trauma-informed care class for everyone who will be teaching or assisting in that. There are other trainings that I would like to be getting out to them. So I've been working with the contractor for that is Brianne Smith, who I think currently works for Outer Cape Behavioral Health Solutions. She's the one who's been helping us get our QPR program off the ground. And then she's providing additional care for them. So I kind of have her, I've been asking her, like, what else can we deliver to increase the sensitivity and support level of this? But they will, barring a completely bizarre miracle type situation, they will not be able to meet the standards that the program was originally launched in. We were just really lucky to have that particular person at the time.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. But I love this program.
Well,
John?
I just an
Yes,
additional thought again, and I think they should come in, but I think also we should at least get the thought into their head that if we give them money, they should include very specifically descriptions of this in their fundraising, because my guess is that with that expanded availability of it, there are going to be people who are in a good financial position to say, this is something that I would specifically give money to over and above our general fundraising. And I think this would give that, if we get them to understand that they should leverage our money with their own substantial support group, we can use the town money to actually maybe get this almost self-supporting. Just a thought.
It's a good one, John, for sure. So they will come in.
Yeah.
All right. So we're on to a safe place. Linda?
I haven't had time to get over there or look at that one, but having started Safe Place, and I've been a big supporter of Safe Place every single time they've come in. They just provide such an essential service that I just don't have much else to say about it. I just want to continue to support them.
Frankly, like, they're the exact, they and South Coast are why I was like, we don't need to have people come in every single time.
Exactly.
I have never seen less than them going past what they needed to do. They've been continually adding new elements of their service portfolio. They've been finding people, they've been reaching out to other organizations, they've been partnering very successfully with public safety. It's a model program in a lot of ways.
And you know, the one thing that impressed me is it's called Source Hub, so it's translation services, and you know, when asked if we couldn't fully fund, that's one of the things saying that they may have to let that subscription go. And I see that as being an extremely important thing.
And they do have people on staff that speak other languages, which is essential. Because there's
Exactly.
having worked with the underground immigration group here, we know that there is a lot of issues with certain demographics that is not necessarily well publicized, but they need some place to go and they need somebody to understand Portuguese in particular.
John?
Again, just coincidentally, I am I have spent a lot of time in the space which they have, the building they have acquired. And I will have to say that I think it's a genius opportunity for them. The building is beautifully located for their purposes. In terms of being more, what should say, there's the anonymity that sometimes you need to get forth. But I think having seen their problems over the years of identifying a place to be, this as a permanent home is going to give them a kind of basic stability that going forward, they will only just keep getting just as good as or better than they already are.
Where are they going?
They,
I forgot where they
Amelia.
go.
it's
Amelia
on
Drive?
Amelia Drive.
Yeah.
And it was the space that because I have been doing physical therapy with Joe Manning.
Joe Manning's. Yeah.
Oh, it's that building?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
It's
mean,
that building,
Yeah.
it has 2 apartments on the top floor, which they are going to keep. It has basement space, which they can adapt for other purposes. And
And it's accessible and with parking.
It's accessible, it has excellent parking, and there's enough other activity going on so that if you could come in and out of there and be almost totally anonymous because there's so much other stuff. And it so happens that right next door, apparently, the building I've been told it's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu club.
Well, he's moving out. He's moving out. So it's
Moving out that.
yes. So there's a whole other thing going on over there. But
I don't know what's going on there.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it's great. We've told them every year they need another place to go.
They found it.
They found it. It's amazing. So good.
That's wonderful because there's so many organizations that need homes, so it's wonderful that they've been able to do this. And good. All right, so we don't need to have them come in at all. We can offer it, but it's not necessary.
To confirm, Martha's Vineyard Community Services, Elder Services, Safe Place, and South Coast are the 4 that they have the optional meeting.
Right.
Okay. we are at 10:51. We have the substance misuse.
Okay. So addiction solution. Um.
This is, so another thing to keep in mind, this is the last year that this is going to be structured in the way that it is.
Exactly.
I'm almost of a mind to bring everybody in to see, like, almost for data collection, to inform the people that this is not gonna, this specific grant function is not gonna be in place next year.
Yeah.
And
So
that
don't count on it. Yeah.
essentially, like,
Right.
you've got this calendar year, that's like, that's just a proposal I'm throwing out right now.
But even though we know that there's not gonna be an earmark of this money specifically, this does fall in one of our overall needs, so they could,
Be
you
part of
know,
the,
as we move forward, they still can apply, but don't, it's not gonna be
You will have to
one
do something.
seventy-five. They're gonna have to
You're gonna have to do
think
something
creatively.
differently next year. The pot of money will likely be different. So that's just my personal thought on it. There's also, I think, of the applicants, what is it? There's ASAP NAMI.
Health imperatives.
Health
and-
imperatives,
And,
PRISM.
Prism. Okay. Yeah. Addiction solutions, the positive thing I see here is, they are developing a succession plan. So hiring, part-time medical staff, another doctor, social work. And, you know, they did, last year, they increased their clinic hours and they increased their client base by 35%. So, they're doing things, they're growing. I think that, you know, so it's a positive thing. You know, we know that eventually, they're gonna need to have other folks in there. Not that Dr. Upper is going anywhere, but you know, it just. they're
He's like,
planning.
he's like the rest of us. He's aging.
Yes, he's aging, you know,
In place.
and unfortunately, the need is not, going away.
it's the Trish.
So, all right.
So are there specific questions we want to ask in advance for addiction solutions? It seems like succession planning might be a thing we want to ask about.
No.
Yeah. What's
if-
going to happen if the funding goes away on our side, if we can't get the FinCom to give us the 175 in our regular budget? You know, increase our 650 to cover the 175 that's going to be missing next year?
Mhm.
How do they foresee going forward if we don't have that little pot of money there?
And I know they've been doing more fundraising. They've got a solid board now. They've got a lot of good things happening. My concern is, can they hire qualified staff? You know, it's a unique thing that Dr. Lepre has done, so is, can they hire that staff?
well, and yeah, I mean, are they starting to tap into like state and federal money? I mean, for opioid help, there should be programs beyond.
But I know that we've had, Community Solutions for Behavioral Health has reached out for some grant writing assistance, Rosemary there. And then we've been in talks with Dr. Lepre, for a couple of like grant or rolling, there's a Department of Mental Health rolling, grant application process that they're trying to get, up and running, that we're trying to get him to get logged in on.
Excellent.
Signed up for.
I just think rural
there-
opioid money is out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Right, and
One of their big drawbacks was the lack of the 501c3 when they first started. It was sort
Right,
of coming, you know,
Yes.
he was sitting in his chair. It was just coming from him, sitting in a chair in his office, trying to come up with a solution, seeing what was happening. But they didn't have a 501c3 at that point. That's a big
was-
drawback on trying to get funding.
their first year application here, they pulled because they didn't get the 501c papers in time.
Right,
And then they got the 501c papers and then have been applying each year after. That definitely helped. I've seen, I've seen a broader and more, active, like
Mhm.
participatory board of late.
Yep.
Alan Bell staying in the game as a pharmacist, I think has kind of kept him more engaged now. And the financial elements that were a concern at the very beginning were also have been steadily improving as time
Improving.
goes on.
yeah. I think they are, they've institutionalized the organization.
Yeah.
That's their.
Just
moving forward.
confirming that you're
Yeah.
coming.
So I will take from that
Six.
succession planning, fundraising, and questions around expanding services or footprint.
Right,
Okay.
health imperatives.
Great, good stuff.
Yeah, this is key.
Stuff, always good stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, and you
If-
know, it's Narcan
yeah,
and
I mean, I was worried that
harm reduction.
the harm reduction stuff, the Narcan stuff was overlapping with a lot of stuff that CSB is doing, but they do it in such a culturally competent way that it's irreplaceable.
yeah.
Yeah,
And the fact that it's co-located and co-structured with places that are already delivering services related to this.
yeah,
I think if I hadn't just argued that we should call them all in to tell them that it's changing, I'd be like, we don't need to call them in for this. This
Right.
is something.
well, she'll be.
And she's
here
coming in
anyway,
anyway,
so we'll see if we-
just
we'll see if we
say,
do the 1
and by
two
the
on
way.
Yeah.
All right, NAMI ASAP,
Yeah, which one was this? So this is another one of the, oh, I'm sorry, it's not assigned to me.
no, it's John. It was
Well,
last-
unfortunately, I was not able to reach out and do what I was assigned to do on this one. So
Okay,
I cannot contribute anything. I hadn't realized that this was my assignment until I got the notice, and then Jericho and I had a conversation, and I just between what my being laid up and finding out about this late, I just
Mhm.
did not reach out and touch base with anybody.
So I have been working with Mass on a variety of other programs. We did a baby version of this using strategic fund money and the same pass through. There's also, this is potentially the third program that utilizes MAST in some capacity. This, I think we've demonstrated, it's been demonstrated pretty effectively that there are some benefits from this wellness programming, that it is pretty effective at teaching sort of fungible life skills that can be useful afterwards. There's a lot of breathing and body work kind of practice that can be taken and gone with afterwards. We've worked with Elise in a variety of capacities. She's doing the ASAP component of this. I think I think we bring him in just to let him know that things are changing, and ask possibly whatever questions come out as a result of that, just because I think that there's going to be some like networking kind of questions that we can figure out there that might be helpful, and that learning a little more about it might help the board members specifically refer people into MAST or into this program. So to that extent, it's necessary, but this is one of the ones that I think solid application, relatively known, but still kind of innovative service for delivery. Kind of figuring out the depths of partnership that MAST is willing to do in human service stuff. So to me, I think this is an interesting and useful proposal, that I think we should kind of bring them in and just chat about it. There is the primary who is doing a lot of the work. Her name escapes me, but she's a MAST, I think she's either MAST executive, she might be the MAST executive director, who has been the one that's actually making a lot of the connections for referrals from the earlier school program and that sort of thing. So I will ask if Elise can bring her in just to sort of reintroduce her to the group, because I think that I have a feeling we're going to be seeing more of this programming in the future, and it might be a good idea for us to develop a relationship
Right.
sooner.
Yeah, MAST is everyone, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I initially, when we went through the science, said I would recuse on that one. just because, my husband is, well now, I guess it's NAMI,
Yeah,
but you know, whatever, but he's, on the board. But, I don't know if that proves me from, you know,
I don't think so. I think you need to declare that, which you just did.
right,
And I think that satisfies it, but if you would like, I can reach out to compliance to see if there's any questions
Yeah.
around that.
Oh,
you know, just,
Jericho?
Yes,
I guess you should do this. My wife is on the board of the Athenaeum. And again, you probably should reach out to figure out whether, I would recuse myself from voting on the particular matter. But
I
whether that,
will, I'll reach out to Maureen,
They had to put my disclosure in front of legal and.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think you were the most complicated example, but only for like 6 weeks or something like that. It was
Exactly.
very weird.
Ridiculous.
alright,
But I will ask specifically about the spousal relationship issue.
right. So
Prism.
that moves us on to Prism, and on this one, I need help
Yeah.
because Jericho, did you get over there on Sunday?
I did not, unfortunately. I have done additional follow-up on Prism. And I've also talked to them about the clubhouse project that they're looking to advance as a potential expansion of the opposite side of the lot. So Prism is, for the old timers, the gym that moved into Orange Street Video. That is now a gym. They're opening a nonprofit component to that, which is a variety of different services and programming. Primarily up until now, they've been doing mentoring and sort of a little past coaching level of like mentorship with a variety of high school students. They participate, they're reasonably well connected to the athletic department, which is helping them get a variety of different referrals into people, and they apparently have a 10 to 15 person regular group for mentorship
And it
activities.
seems that's been funded by a portion of their membership dues has gone to support that, and it's a limited number of students that they have. It is. I
Hello?
actually have been, this has been rambling
Hi,
about in my
Katie.
head because I can't
I'm in the
necessarily
middle of
wrap
this-
my head around what this is. And I do think we need to get them in here and try to understand it. And Sue, you had brought to my attention that they have also submitted a warrant article
Correct.
for funding.
Yes, I haven't read.
Which group is this? Sorry, which group is this? I had to leave the
This
room
is-
for a second.
This is Prism.
PR.
Yeah, I didn't
PRSM.
understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, apparently it's pronounced Prism.
Yeah,
Some,
And they have put up a citizens warrant article for funding for you knew what it was.
it was part of so I think it was funding to support the construction of a space that could be used as a clubhouse type location, clubhouse slash gym slash like youth center
a youth
type model.
center.
But one that would be relatively small and on the, Linda, you know where Fast Forward Express is? Or was?
Yeah. Yeah.
That space, they're looking to develop and turn into some sort of gym type thing. This particular
How small that,
program,
yeah, how small that space is?
it would involve some restructuring. Like they asked me to write a letter of support for like for an HDC variance or HDC hearing. And so it'd be changes to the physical location to an extent.
They don't have, I
particular-
have knowing, I'm doing the original ZBA permits for that thing years ago. They got
Well, I
nowhere to
think-
go.
Well, I think that's sort of what that's what the warrant article is a way to get around.
And the concern was that there was just a pitch to turn it into a bar.
Yeah,
Right.
and
Yeah, and that got
so
turned down.
I
Yeah,
don't know,
So this is round two,
so I don't know what, I
Okay,
can't speak to that particular component of it.
right?
The particular proposal we have here is $100,000, which would include services. Like training, coaching and mentorship services delivered on school grounds
Right.
as part of their athletic program. I have questions about whether or not that would constitute a departmental budget transfer if I'm delivering services at the school. But at
the
first blush.
liability, huge
Well, so no,
liability.
they would be covered, well, they would be covered under, like, they would be doing so in full partnership with the athletic department, so that would be on the athletic, like, that's the. They would need to, prison would need to carry the same liability insurance that any other, grant recipient from us would. But specifically, the coverage on the school would be under, I think, the school policy.
Right. So what they're looking at is, I don't know, 325 or 350 high school students that participate in athletics, so they're whalers. They would do them on school property. Then there's 150 students who do not participate in athletics, and they're the ones they want to bring into their facility. My
Do
question with
what?
that is, if I didn't participate in athletics, am I gonna wanna go to a gym? It may not be my thing. So how are they gonna get those students there? And, when the outcome, it's like, well, if the students come back, that's a positive outcome. It's just, I think what they're trying to do, and I'm trying to be very open-minded with this, is I think they're trying to create a youth center. And,
If you build it, it will come.
build it.
What about this thing out here near my house? Our house thing? I mean,
Right.
it seems like they're all targeting the same group.
That's not quite the same thing. Our house has like some additional social services support. There's a vocational program that's pending some like facilities upgrade. I am reasonably certain that there is an N for that 100, like there's a percent of that 150 that would make it there. I'm thinking specifically of the people who are doing non-organized athletics, as opposed to like team sports. But I don't know exactly what the breakdown of this is and exactly what services are delivered. I've had several conversations with them. They seem to have the mission at heart, but I am curious to see what the board would have to say about this particular proposal. And just kind of more specifics on what the mentorship entails seems to be something that would be valuable for us.
And I also want to see how this necessarily coordinates with what they're asking in a citizen warrant.
So I don't, from a philosophical point of view, and I know everyone loves hearing me say that word, but from a philosophical point of view, I don't know how much, like, we should know about it in context to like see if we can add value. I don't know if it should be altering our perspective on the specific proposal, but I think that we should ask how it connects and how he plans
Well,
to use it.
the reason is if you don't get A, are you gonna be able to
Yeah.
do B? Or are they dependent on each other? And also, there is also, the gym is called
Isaiah.
Say it again?
Isaiah.
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 Isaiah. That is a membership club for adults. And that is a business. So how is this impacting that?
They have a separate 501c.
Right,
So there's some financial barriers, but this in general, this question is gonna come up more and more. There's ethical capitalism or ethical business trend that's happening now, where we're gonna see an increasing bleed between a nonprofit arm of a
Right.
for-profit organization delivering trying to collect grant money to deliver worthy services. And I think we're gonna need to have kind of a discussion about how we feel we should do that,
Right,
both at this level and at CHS.
right, because I think that that's where we're going. And we do want private enterprise to participate, coordinate, whatever. But then it's a fine line of, is it for profit? Is it for social good? Is it meet our mission?
And then if a social good is delivered but has a reputational benefit to the for-profit industry, is that something we care about? Like, wouldn't we want more people to go to a for-profit organization that is spending money and time to do nonprofit activities?
Right.
That is a genuine question on my part, and I think that we are going to need to have a policy or a idea of what that means and how we want to handle it. And then I think we should evaluate it repeatedly, like on a cycle, when we have sort of data to back it up to see how it's worked. And then, of course, we'll have to look at the very tight legal specifics, because there are a variety of legal concerns around these things that we want to definitely guard against. So this is one of the areas where I'll be trying to see if there are hard and solid rules on finance and procurement law and nonprofit distribution. And then just sort of kind of take a conservative approach from a liability exposure point of view. But I think we do need to talk about that at some point.
Right.
And we don't
Alright,
even
so
know
that-
if they can integrate with the school. I mean, they don't have a proven track record here at all.
Well, they've been doing mentorship and education on their on internal
Their
side,
side.
on their own side for a few years now. And they like talk to, like, they apparently are working with Lombardi, AD Lombardi. So that might be a question we ask, is like, what has your mentorship up until now been able to do? Like, what have you been doing up till now to demonstrate that we should buy in on this? But they're a first time, they're gonna come in regardless. I think that these are the sorts of questions we should ask. I'll take the general, like, what is the current state of your programming? And what is your plan for the two different populations?
Right. Okay. Well, that wraps up all of our grant applications. And here, once again, I keep losing my agenda. I've got too many papers in front of me. Here we go. All right.
We are review calendar, which I think we sort of already
So
did.
we already did review the calendar and deliberations, and now keeping our meetings till Friday morning, that this is the 9 to 11, although we've gone over. It's the dedicated time that if we need to have a meeting, it's Friday morning at 9 o'clock. And I think that helps moving forward. John?
Oh, just for my own benefit, once we close up this meeting, could you just send out a short email showing the dates on which we have finally settled? I just didn't get them noted down properly, and I just for my aged mind, I need to see it in writing.
If you would do that, Lexi.
We all need that, John.
Doesn't hurt anybody,
Right,
no.
but we will get an update with the dates again, and as soon as possible, the agencies should be notified with a time slot.
So the current plan is, I'm gonna notify everyone that the 10th and the 17th are the anticipated days for presentations. We will have a scheduling tool up for them. Like a sign up program, not bookings, because that didn't work really well when we tried it for the Reftalis study. I had you guys sign up through that. I'm gonna find a different thing to use for than that. But basically, we'll have a spot for them to sign up. next week, but I'm just informing them now so that they have the maximum possible time to lock in to reserve those 2 days as keeping them open as possible. Then the email to all the people we asked to come in will be like, here are the 2 days, here's the sign up tool. Here, and then I'll send questions to each individual person that are pertaining to the questions we had. And then for the people that we're not requiring, I'm gonna send an email to all of them, BCC'd, where I say,
Thank you.
thank you very much for your submission. The committee does not have any specific need for you to come in to give a presentation. If you would like to, they are on these days. You're not participating in the presentation will not impact your grant assessment.
Right, yeah.
And then that I'll try and have out next week before Christmas. There
Okay,
shouldn't be any problem with that.
just doing my rough math here, it looks like we're gonna need a little over 4 hours if we have everyone come in at 15-minute intervals. So,
That's
15 minutes. Wow.
15 minutes. And if on those days, we should really just honestly realize it's gonna be 3 hours for the committee members with the startup and the drop down. And my suggestion is we would do the 10th and the 17th, 2.5 hours at 15 minutes per presenter with that 15-minute beginning and end for what's it called? I think that's just realistic. It's a bummer, but unless we're gonna split it up into more days, I think that's the best we can do.
yeah,
Okay.
And there needs to be somebody with a timer a bell that dings.
That is gonna be, we're gonna do that this time.
okay.
And we're just gonna have to kind of keep it on. If there are additional questions or if a discussion needs to go on beyond that, then we're gonna have to follow up in another
Reschedule,
capacity.
Exactly. All right,
Other business?
appreciate the effort that everyone has put into this. It's a lot. And, we still have a lot more to dig into here, but I appreciate the time and effort everyone put in. Do we have any other business? With no other business, I wish everyone a
Motion to
Happy-
adjourn.
adjourn. I wish everyone a happy and healthy
Second.
and peaceful and motion to adjourn. Well, I think we have that put in
And I
there. So
seconded.
John, Don?
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Sue,
Happy holiday.
Merry Christmas.
Happy holiday.
Hanukkah, and Happy New Year. We'll see you in 2025, which has to get better. That's all I can say.
Bye, Morgan.
Thanks.
All right.
next year.
Do well, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.